Hey, afternoon or evening at this point. I know it's been a minute since I had this out, and so I've been trying real hard to get these there. I don't know about many of you, but it definitely feels like it's been a very fast start to the season. Some key things to kind of keep in mind, right, is our important dates. First competition, we've already kind of had first practice. Our rules meeting should have been all done with yourself and your staff this week. Make sure you're completing your nutrition education. You can find that stuff on the MHSA website. Obviously, we have a while before the last day to Alpha, and we do have coming around the corner here soon at the start of the year the weight allowance when that comes up. So, some reminders I'm going to look at today to get out there to people. Right, we've already had some snow days and cold days coming up. When do teens get the 1 pound allowance for consecutive weigh-ins or other things? Reminding to rate our officials, and lastly, some points of emphasis that have been shared with the officials coming into the week. So a big thing, obviously, right, is hey, where are these things going to come up from canceled day or access to facilities? Remember, you don't automatically get a pound just because school is canceled. It usually shows up when a school does not have access to their facilities prior to the weigh-in. So, just having a snow day doesn't give you a pound. And then again, if there's any school in an event where one school gets that 1 pound allowance, all schools in that event would get that 1 pound allowance. So it works that way. An additional pound is all that's given. Even if you had like 5 canceled school days in a row, or you wrestled multiple competitions in a row, it would just be 1 pound that's given at a time. So it doesn't just keep adding up. Again, anytime one school gets that 1 pound allowance, all schools at a given event would get that 1 pound allowance. If you are not the host school where that occurs, please contact the host school, let them know, so then they could contact all of the other schools coming in a timely fashion so they are also aware. Making certified weight. We're getting, obviously, wrestlers are starting to make their certified weight for the first time for different things. You must make your scratch weight prior to earning the 1 pound or the 2 pound growth allowance, right? So be careful of that. Make sure that your wrestlers already kind of made a certified weight prior to getting their additional pound on things. You can't use that 1 pound to make it, right? So if you've never made, say, 113 for an individual, and then you get a 1 pound allowance on a weigh-in, they can't make 114 to go 113 because they've never certified that weight yet. As we have some makeup dates coming up and looking at some different things, just remember, for the most part, you can't have more than 3 competitions in a week. I know it says a school, but we should really think about that as a team or an individual, because obviously you could have 4 competitions with a girls team or with a JV, stuff like that. But any individual, right, regardless of what team they're on or floating between, should not compete more than 3 times in a given week. And no more than 2 of those days should be on a day that precedes a school day. For the most part, right, that's Sunday through Thursday. There's a little bit of grace given on the Sundays, especially with the girls' competitions and how they are growing. And then the other big piece is you can't exceed more than 10 matches in a 2-day period. Keyword here, right, is competitions, not weigh-ins, right? So you can't use like a day of weigh-in for an event and a next day weigh-in on that, to have more competitions. Our officials, right, we're out there, we're doing the things again. So let's make sure we're rating those officials in a timely fashion as we're going and keeping those ratings coming in. It's a big deal, right, for them and for us in our postseason. And rate them for each event that you see them, right? So if you see, John Bishop, and you see him like 3 or 4 times over a couple weeks, don't just rate him once. Rate him for each event you see him at. Numbers of ratings is part of the metrics they use in helping determine officials in the postseason. To kind of help with that, so we're going to strongly ask, and I'm going to do another kind of video on some of this, but if you are hosting any event, whether it's a duel, a quad, a tournament, a multi-day tournament, that as the host school, please go into the MHSA system and input that event in the schedule. And when you do that, include all of the schools that have come to that event for you, so that shows up on their schedule to make the rating a little easier. And as the host school, you most likely have the up-to-date, accurate officials numbers and stuff. And so add those officials also under that when you put that event in. And so coaches, we can kind of share that burden of load for each other and go in and rate those officials as we go. If you think you got 16 competition dates, but you're probably not hosting more than somewhere, I'll say between 2 and 4 things. And so if you're only having to like physically enter, right, a quarter of your season and other coaches are helping with that, I think we can get more ratings out there for those officials and not create a greater workload on our coaches. When you're doing some of those ratings, right, they have that 1 to 5, right, scale from below standard, marginal, meet standard, above standard, and superior. You can look at the different documents for that, kind of keep those in mind. But a big thing with this, right, as you're kind of going through and you're rating those officials and you're looking at those guys, right, try not to get in the habit that you just mark a 3, right, to kind of speed up the process for yourself or make it easy. Let's get these guys some valuable feedback. But more importantly, let's help the process to get our best officials at our state events. So instead of questioning, why don't we have so-and-so here, or we're really missing some of our best officials, well, if we are collectively, right, not giving them the ratings that they are earning, that's going to be kind of hard. It's a judgment as you look at kind of things, but I would think that, the caliber officials that we're looking for postseason events probably have a lot of 4s and some 5s mixed in with their ratings. Not a lot of like just base level 3s. I think the 3s are good officials and they're doing their job. But, again, if you're thinking about the guys that you want to see postseason, you don't want that official that's just kind of doing the job. You want that guy that's above the job. And so keep that in mind. If you're seeing an official and what he's doing or typically does, right, is above the job, even though it might just be a run-of-the-mill meet or event where you see him where like nothing outstanding happened, positively or negatively, they still might be a 4 if you've seen them enough and you know that they belong above a 3. Some of the points of emphasis shared out with the officials this week through Sam and the state office. Just some things to keep in mind, right? Starting matches with duels, making sure that you have your wrestler, the next one ready to go when they're called up, right? They're supposed to be ready to report in a timely fashion and up there. We don't have like lots of time for them to get around, get dressed, or decide they're going to go, right? They should be pretty much almost immediately ready to go up as quick as possible. Reaction time, right? We're getting back into the season. We know everybody sees things a little bit different. Please keep in mind that neither the National Federation or our state has really defined a length of time for reaction time, right? So the idea of it's been 2 seconds or it's more than a second or whatever that happens to be, unfortunately, there is no defined length of time for reaction time, right? Each situation could have some different circumstances, some different pieces to it. The caliber and level of wrestling could play into that. And, truthfully, this is a judgment piece. So different officials may look at this differently. Maybe if you've got some questions on that, ask your officials or ask people like, how do they kind of see things or where are kind of things, especially if you're going to see some officials many times over the year. That could help you work with your athletes, work with your team to be more in line with what that might look like. Another piece is for coaching misconduct, right? If a coach, right, you, an assistant, or anybody on your staff is requesting a conference with the referee at the scores table, right, regarding a potential misapplication of a rule or any of those things, right? If there's look at that and they go like, hey, we didn't misapply a rule during that conference, they are supposed to, right, issue that misconduct penalty at that point. Or if you question their judgment within that, they are supposed to issue a misconduct at that point, right? And it's supposed to always be charged to that. And when they charge that, it is charged to the head coach. So it could be your JB's assistant coach's, right, second assistant that goes up to the head table. But that is still charged to the head coach or the head coach in charge of that event, right? Any person that is designated by the school as a coach is allowed to go and speak at the scores table. Also, at that time, it is only supposed to be the coach who is requesting the conference that is at the scores table. It is not a committee conference where lots of people are going up all at once. There may be times, right, where there's a couple that are up there talking, or an official may ask for another, but please don't bring like an entire entourage when you are trying to have some of those discussions. I know we're just wrapping up our second week of competition here, so I hope things are going great for everybody and continue to go well. We've got the winter break right around the corner where, things really start to take off just after that. As always, if you have questions or need things from our association, please let us know so we can get on that for you.